Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. Tax pros, beware of pandemic related email schemes. COVID tax tip 2021 126, August 26, 2021. All tax pros need to beware of evolving phishing scams that use virus pandemic related schemes to steal client data. So clearly, we're still in the pandemic related environment. Clearly, there's still a lot of money and benefits going out from the government, often it going through the Internal Revenue Service. This then results in an environment where the schemers will start scheming, especially targeting possibly tax professionals to try to pick up some of this money going out here. So it is the taxpayers' responsibility, or it is the tax preparers' responsibility to secure their network to protect taxpayer data. Tax pros, especially those who engage in remote transactions, remain vulnerable to identity thieves posing as potential clients. So one thing that the pandemic did is it obviously took us away more so from the face-to-face communication with the client, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to clarify with the client that they're a legitimate client. Also, we work more remotely from our clients at this point in time, meaning some offices might be logging into their computers from another area, which could add another gateway to basically get into your networks from that point as well, that possibly schemers could take advantage of too. So clearly one of the most common ways to get into the network would to be claiming that you're something like a client, a potential new client, because as a CPA, we would not really have we wouldn't know too much about the new client, of course, and they're trying to pick up new clients, and therefore that would be the most common way you would think that a schemer would craft the scheme. So the criminals then trick practitioners into opening email links to attachments that infect computer systems. So obviously at that point in time, then if you download this, they say, hey, there's my stuff. Well, you take a look at it, you download it, and then you got malware on your system now, and the malware is going to do malicious stuff. So the warning about these phishing scams comes as part of the IRS and its Security Summit Partners annual summit campaign. This year's theme, Boost Security Immunity Fight Against Identity Theft. There's a link to that here. Urges tax pros to step up their efforts to protect client data. Scams may differ in themes, but they generally have two traits. They appear to come from known or trusted source, such as colleague, bank, credit card company, cloud storage provider, tax software provider, or even the IRS. So obviously that they come from a known source. For the tax pros, it might be an unknown source, but one which we would like to get to know if it was a legitimate client. They tell a story, often with an urgent tone. So that urgentness, like I need this now, is clearly usually one of the things that happen with these kind of situations as well. So they try to act, have you act before you really think about it, to trick the receiver into opening a link or attachment. Fraudsters continue to impersonate pandemic-related government benefit programs to launch phishing campaigns. Pandemic-related scams may be delivered by email, social media, phone, or text, and may reference legitimate programs such as the economic impact payments. Instead of providing economic relief, these scams collect personal and financial information. Legitimate government programs will have corresponding information on their official government website. So obviously, the government agencies, if you think it's a legitimate thing, then you may still want to stop, go to the actual government website, and see if you could pick up the information from the source directly. That then allowing you to not have to click the link. The link could doing two things. One, it could download malicious software, and two, it could take you to a fraudulent website that is looking kind of like a government type of website. So therefore you want to go to the website directly, generally, without clicking on the link, and see if you can go that way. Phishing emails or SMS texts, known as smishing, attempt to trick the person receiving the message into disclosing personal information such as password, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, or social security numbers. Anyone with a smartphone is a potential target. Smishing scams may leverage the child tax credit or other pandemic-related tax-related programs to trick recipients into visiting phishing websites. A specific kind of phishing email is called spear phishing. Rather than the scattershot nature of general phishing emails, scammers take time to identify their victim and craft a more enticing phishing email known as a lure. So this, and most of us, when we see the phishing emails, you might look at these kind of things and kind of roll your eyes and say, who would possibly click on the phishing email? If you're a tax professional, you've probably seen a million of them at this point in time, where they're basically, the email says it's spam right on the email, and it's not a very well crafted email. It's clearly very general in nature because it was crafted to basically be be delivered to a whole bunch of people at one point in time. And the idea there is that obviously you only need one or two people to click on it. And especially if in order for that then to pay off for the scammers, would generally be the shotgun type of approach. And of course, if you're opening that kind of stuff on your phone or stuff when you're doing other things, then it's likely by just shooting out enough of them that you'll have someone pick it up. Now, if they were to adjust it just a little bit and craft it towards a particular individual, it would take a lot more time for them, because instead of sending it out to a whole million people or whatever, they'd have to craft it to one particular person. But it would just take a little bit more time to do that in order to make it a lot more enticing, a lot more difficult to be able to pick up as a tax professional in that sense. So you got to be careful as a tax professional in particular, because you're going to be more of a target for these individuals, where they might think it worth their time to craft a scam directly related to them in order to get into the information on the computer, which could have multiple identities that they can be targeting and stealing. So scammers often use spear phishing to target tax pros. In a reoccurring and very successful spear phishing scam, criminals pose as potential new clients, exchanging several emails with tax pros before following up with an attachment that they claim was their tax information. So obviously, if they were to build a relationship, especially these days where they don't have to actually go into the office, but they could try to build one online with multiple email communications instead of just one shotgun email, by the fifth email or whatever, if they ask you to open something up, you feel most likely that you've built the level of trust at that point in time that you're much more likely to download the information and look into it further. So again, that takes a lot more time on the scammer side of things, just in terms of volume of scams they can put out there. But they might do that if they have a highly, someone that they think it's going to be worth it in terms of how much they could get with regards to the information. So once the tax pro clicks on the URL or opens the attachment, malware secretly downloads into their computer, giving thieves access to passwords to client accounts or remote access to the computer. Thieves then use malware known as remote access Trojan to take over the tax professional's office computer system, identify pending tax returns, complete them, and e-file them, changing only the bank account information to steal the refund. And it's amazing that they could do all that from a remote, right? They're actually going to complete the tax return remotely. Nefarious stuff. But in any case, this scam remains popular as many tax pros continue to work remotely and communicate with clients over email versus in person or over phone because of COVID-19. Tax pros should follow basic security steps to protect their accounts and client data. For example, using two-factor or multi-factor authentication option offered by tax preparation providers or storage providers would protect client accounts even if passwords were inadvertently disclosed. So in other words, even if they got into your computer and they're basically, the mouse is moving around and they're trying to click on the software, then they'd have to have, even if they had the password to get into the tax software, then they'd have to have the multi-factor thing, which would at least stop them at that point in time. So the multi-factor is something that seems essential at this point, meaning you log in with your phone and get another or something like that, have a second factor other than the computer, so that if the computer is compromised, then hopefully the phone won't be compromised at the same time or whatever. So keeping antivirus software automatically updated helps prevent scams that target software vulnerabilities. Using drive encryption and regularly backing up files helps stop theft and ransomware attacks. So more information can be found at publication 4557, Safeguarding Taxpayer Data. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.